welcome to Hot Topic, the Hot Tub Talk Show. My name is Shannon, Bacchus. I'm your host. This is my dad, Mike Schaefer. And this is his alcohol. Today we have with us Nina Romeo.
Hello.
How are you, Nina?
Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Happy to be here.
What are we drinking today?
Today we're drinking a Sex on the Beach, made by the lovely host, Shannon.
Thank you. And Dad, what are you drinking?
Those of us that are a bit more conservative are drinking single malt scotch.
Conservative in more ways than one, I see.
More ways than one.
Okay. Excellent. We had a lovely dinner this evening, and now we're all best friends now, and now we're ready to ruin it. It's a beautiful...
Oh! What do I do?
As I was saying, it's a beautiful blustery... Is blustery the right word?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful blustery evening here in Mundelein, Illinois. And we're going to get trashed and talk trash. Okay. Nina, what's our topic for today?
So our topic for this evening is reproductive rights, especially hot.
Particularly a hot topic in
Very, very interesting that we picked this topic 6 weeks ago, not knowing what was going to be in the press in the last week.
Exactly. It's just sort
serendipitous.
of serendipitous.
Serendipitous.
6 weeks, that's enough to make a life.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
In that amount of time, you then have to keep the life. So let's dive in. Let's just start with opening statements, real brief. Nina, what are your basic opinions on reproductive rights?
So what I believe on the topic of reproductive rights is that a woman can choose when or whether she wants to have children, and that it is no place for the United States government to enforce any laws over what she does or doesn't do with her body. I also believe that providing safe and legal abortions, as well as sexual education and access to contraceptives, we can promote a safer environment for women, for future pregnancies, and for less abortions overall, less unplanned pregnancies overall, which I think is something that most people would agree is a good thing.
Opening statements.
I'm going to come back to that because I do have some questions.
Yes.
But I'll give my opening statement. For me, I believe life begins at conception. I also don't believe it's my spot to tell anyone else what to believe. So it puts me in this whole Roe v. Wade thing kind of puts me in a really tough spot because I believe life begins at conception, but I don't think I should tell anybody else. I think it's such a personal decision, and people can make their own decisions, and they're the ones who have to explain their decisions on Judgment Day someday. So it's kind of a tough spot.
Yeah.
I do have, and I don't have an answer to this, though. I accept a lot of the arguments about women's health and what have you. But the one thing that I get lost that I never hear about in the debate is who speaks for the unborn. I'm not sure it should be the government speaking for the unborn, but who speaks for the unborn?
Right, yeah. So what I would say to that is, for me personally, I don't believe that life begins at conception, but I know there are a lot of people who do. And I think that I agree with most of what you said, and that it's up to
Are you sure you're not a Republican?
I'm not, but I agree that that everybody reserves the right to believe what they want to believe, obviously, and that each of our individual liberties permit us to hold whatever religious beliefs we have or whatever political beliefs we have. But I don't believe that abortion is inherently political, and I think that in terms of speaking for the unborn, the problem with that is that it is not an objective truth that the unborn, before 24 weeks is a human being. Because, I mean, if you boil it down to, if you come to what across the boards in the United States, like Christianity, Catholicism is kind of like the dominant religion, and for the most part... Christianity, yeah. For the most part, they believe that it does begin at conception, but for example, Islam, Judaism believe it starts at the first breath. So, but in terms of science, there is no objective truth. The only objective truth in science is the stages. So, for example, like in the third trimester, after 24 weeks, is when the fetus begins to form its nervous system and can feel senses, and the cerebrum begins to develop and stuff like that. But they can't tell us, is it or is it not human, because that is subjective.
Question.
Right. So I don't think that the government should have a say on subjective opinion in that respect. I think that what the government should mandate is, or should enforce, is the rights of the person that is objectively human, which is the mother. The mother, beyond all shadow of a doubt, is a human being. That cannot be contested.
But I'm going to throw your first buttercup, Nina.
Princess Bacchus.
Buttercup is our safe word. It is used to highlight when someone is offering opinion, but stating it as a fact, or when someone is trying to shout down the other person, or to call them out and call them stupid or whatever, because the objective here is to have an open discussion and discuss viewpoints, not to try to convince the other person to come over to their point of view. Hence, throw your first buttercup, Nina.
Yeah.
Because without a shadow of a doubt, objectively is an opinion. It's contrary to those who have the opinion that life begins at conception.
But would you not agree that?
So hang on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So while I respect and accept your position, it's your opinion that the mother is the only one who's human, but not all share that view.
Right. More what I was saying was that, not that objectively the mother is the only living entity, or like the only human being.
But she definitely is.
We can both agree the mother is definitely human.
Well, most of the way.
I thought you were saying buttercup at that, and I was like, what are we doing?
That's the question.
That is a great question.
That is a good question.
Time out.
Okay, so here's a question for you, Nina.
Yeah.
During COVID, a friend of mine, his whole family, all of his 3 kids, were back at home because all schools and workplaces were shut. And they had a lot of very interesting conversations. And his daughter was very adamant, my body, my choice. The end of conversation.
No uterus, no opinion.
And my
Rachel Green.
And my friend said to his daughter, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, he said, didn't you already make a choice when you chose to have unprotected sex?
So I would say, in most cases, yes, that is a choice. There are according to the FBI, 9,000 cases of rape that result in pregnancy a year. So that is in the United States.
Let's leave those be.
We'll table those for a moment.
Let's assume it's consensual.
We'll assume it's
someone
consensual.
met someone.
That is the choice. It isn't always a huge amount of abortions in the United States come from teenage pregnancy, and a lot of that comes from a lack of adequate sexual education.
Agreed.
And a lack of access to contraceptives. But we'll also table that, and we'll go with this was a conscious choice. Big table. It's getting bigger by the moment. This was a conscious choice. I am choosing to have unprotected sex. I know the consequences. Oh no. Whoopsie woo. Whoopsie woo.
Whoopsie woo.
I got pregnant. I'm going to hold my ground and say I still believe that woman has every right to abort that pregnancy, because I think it is up to subjective opinion whether or not the fetus is a human being. I think a lot of that comes from religion, like we talked about previously. And I think that because there is no scientific determination of whether a baby or a person is formed at conception or at a certain period in the pregnancy.
I guess we're not ever actually going to know that unless one of us is God.
And I'm
pretty sure I'm not God. Are you God?
I'll never
Shannon
tell.
might be God.
I'll
I have
never
my
tell.
suspicion.
So that is exactly
Only God would create a scenario.
Satan.
Yeah, you're right.
So what I would say is that that actually is a big factor in why I believe what I believe, that it is impossible for us to determine whether or not the fetus would be a human being or not a human being, because it is a matter of opinion. So the government shouldn't be concerned with that opinion. They should be concerned with the fact that the woman carrying the child is a human being and has autonomy over her body.
So here's a very interesting. It was just in the news yesterday that most of the countries in Europe do not have national laws regarding abortion. They have generally pushed it down to the equivalent of their states or even smaller into their own municipalities. They've pushed the decisions down to small enough groups that people can have a public debate on it, and the local government entities can legislate on it.
So would you say that you would advocate for, instead of a federally mandated yes or no on abortion, that you'd rather it be put down to states' rights?
Or even smaller. And in fact, the draft, that's actually all the draft opinion that was just leaked last week said, it never said, it doesn't say abortion is illegal. It says abortion should not be governed by the Constitution. And because it's not in the Constitution, and because neither the House nor the Senate has passed a law that the president signed, it's none of our business deciding the constitutionality. It should be a states' rights issue. States go decide on your own. I would argue states are too big.
So,
That it should even be smaller entities than that.
but okay, so my question for you would be, what does a smaller government body, why would a smaller government body have more of a say over something that's subjective than the whole government body? Like, what's the difference there? It's still a governing of people.
Just my opinion. It's governing of people, but the smaller the group is, generally the more homogenous it is.
Okay.
And the larger the group is, it's just too big and too diverse.
So it seems like the way you feel is that so much of the country is divided in terms of the way they perceive the fetus, and that there are certain groups that do agree, certain groups that don't agree, and we should be able to listen to those groups, right? In terms of like smaller government bodies deciding on their own.
I think that the smaller and more local you make it, the better chance that the local municipality is going to represent a larger portion of their constituency.
So how about we just make it real small?
Okay.
And make it like, I can
One
choose.
person's
type of vibe in this.
I would encourage you to suggest that to any politician and watch them laugh in your face. I'll buttercup myself at that. But I don't think it's realistic to think that politicians are going to do nothing. Because they're
It's
politicians.
not doing nothing. It's.
I would say
keeping Roe v.
politicians
Wade.
mostly do nothing.
Well, that's an accurate point.
That is, I wish they would do less. With all the laws they've passed, stop helping me. I can't afford it.
All right. So what about abortion? I'm gonna make a statement here. Abortion is healthcare.
I would agree with that statement.
I think it's a really loaded statement. I'm going to put the drink down so I don't drop it.
That's fine.
It's a loaded statement because healthcare is so much more than just abortion.
Right.
Abortion is included in
Part of
healthcare.
healthcare.
I would say yes, but again, remember my initial premise of my personal belief is that life begins at conception. So healthcare, yes, health care of both the mother and the baby.
What about, so a lot of people who have abortions have their reasons for it, whether it be, the majority of people who have abortions are below the poverty line. And
Don't know that as a fact. But I
researched it. It is a fact.
I will accept it.
As the facts I learned about abortion before coming here.
And I will maybe intercede and say, if those of you who are watching or in the tub believe perhaps that because of that fact, or either way, that we would need to spend more money as taxpayers having abortion be legal, it is actually quite the opposite. An abortion is a much cheaper alternative to having to support...
Have the state raise a child that
that was
a mother
unwanted
is
in
not
the first
able
place.
to.
Yeah, I think that is probably an incomplete statement, Nina.
Well,
Just my opinion.
Right. According to the National Library of Medicine, it costs the taxpayer, for every $1 spent on an abortion, $4 is saved if that abortion did not take place.
But what?
$339.6 million annually is saved when abortion is legalized.
Okay, so first of all, in the United States, I would say $339 million. Remember, that's a rounding error in our U.S. government. When they start talking about in the trillions, $339 million is like me dropping a $10 bill in the street.
What I'm trying to get is everyone who is pro-life is so focused on the babies being born and not focused on actually taking care of the baby after it's born.
Right, which is sort of another form of abortion on a state level. I would say, because we care about the baby. It's an extreme statement. I will say it's just that
throw a buttercup.
All right,
out
Alex.
there.
Okay, buttercup.
But I will finish.
I love it though.
And I will say,
I love it.
Start with in my opinion.
In my opinion, I do believe that in terms of the way our government acts when abortion is illegal is that we care so much about the baby's life before it's born, and then in the legislature that usually follows, we don't really give a bit of a little poo about that baby once it's
even a bigger
exists
poo.
in the world.
Not even a little poo, a great big giant poo.
Yeah, and I
totally
think that's
agree.
another form of just neglecting a child.
I think you're bringing up a point that is really not part of the national debate. It's a great point, but if you
I think that it is part of the debate, because I think if we're
really
contesting that a baby must be born, then we have to have something to do about it.
You gotta have a game plan.
You gotta have a little bit of a game plan.
I'm always cautious about asking our government to have a game plan, because one of the things that they're
Well, why should we ask women to have a game plan when they don't want a game plan and they weren't planning?
I'm still slandering our government.
Sure, go for it. I'm all for it. Go for it.
They have this incredible ability to screw just about everything up.
I agree.
I agree. Let's agree there. Yeah.
Look at this beautiful common ground we found.
Look at this. We're no longer left versus right. We're moving to the middle.
Can I ask a question I don't think was asked, but
Hell
can
yeah.
I throw it to you?
Oh yeah.
Can you talk about ectopic pregnancies?
I was just going to bring
What?
that up. because
Ectopic pregnancy.
I'm sure you can.
An explainer to the people.
Go for it.
An ectopic pregnancy is when the fetus implants outside of the uterus, which could kill the mother.
Which will kill the mother.
Which will kill the
Will
mother.
definitely.
Buttercup,
will bleed
it
out.
probably will.
I think
It's pretty much 100% will kill the mother.
I'm pretty sure it's not 100%.
Okay, and it will probably kill the mother.
let me just
But
say,
I
let me say-
accept it's a pretty bad thing.
even if it's a 70% though, right?
It's not good.
It's really not good, right? We agree on
It's
that.
pretty bad.
So
Well, again, though, are
that.
women people? Because that's
Right, we reverse. We go back full circle.
So with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and states making decisions, some states are making the decision that you cannot even abort an ectopic pregnancy.
Ectopic pregnancy is one of them. Pregnancy from rape is another one. Incest is another one. I don't really have good answers. I'm not sure anybody has good answers.
I have a pretty solid answer.
I know who might have an answer. The pregnant person.
And answer, but as far as
So I'm curious though, legitimately, if as a person who does believe that life begins at conception, how do you feel about terminating an ectopic pregnancy like that?
I'm going to defer only because I don't know any. I accept Daryn's explanation. I really don't know anything about it. I'm not a medical person, so I certainly not just ectopic pregnancies. The law has long since held you can abort a baby to save the life of a mother.
Yes.
Whether it's ectopic pregnancy or anything.
And even the Jewish faith says a
Must.
mother
You
should.
must.
Mhm.
Yes,
I've
and as a
had-
Jew, I can confirm.
Does
that.
it? Oh, you're okay. Okay.
So I know it sounds like I'm copping out. I really don't have an opinion on that because I just don't know.
And should the government have an opinion on
The
it?
government shouldn't have an opinion.
Should?
It should not. The government should be not in this business in the first place.
Let's go. We agree.
Oh my
I think we've agreed that Roe v. Wade never should have existed 50 years ago, and as they push it down to the states, that they probably are going to do a crappy job too. And if you push it down to further municipalities, they'll probably do a crappy job too.
So that's an interesting point. Let's just do some sentences on it real quick. Should abortions federally be legal? Like, is it a right to have an abortion as an American?
Yes, ma'am, it is, in my opinion. It is absolutely.
And should it be like defended by
It should be defended by the United States government.
as a human right?
Yes.
I believe that it is a made-up constitutional right that doesn't actually
they all made up?
exist. Well, I mean, no, they're not all made
What-
up.
okay,
Some
but-
of them are
but-
reasonably
okay, but what
explicit,
about-
in my opinion.
Someone wrote
Let me
them.
finish. Let me finish. Because there is a solution to this. The Supreme Court determines constitutionality of laws. They're like an umpire. They call balls and strikes. If Congress passes a law and the president signs it, Supreme Court gets no vote. So how many times in the last 50 years have we had a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress that could have passed that, had the debate, passed the House, passed the Senate? President Obama
Agreed.
had a
Yeah.
veto, had a filibuster-proof Senate. Nothing. President Reagan had a filibuster-proof Senate. They could have they passed a law that says abortion is illegal. Didn't. They've abdicated their responsibility for 5 decades. And the Supreme Court, by passing Roe v. Wade, has now eliminated the right for the states to have the debate on the state level. So I'm
But
hopeful.
they have.
Hang on, one more.
Go ahead, go
then
ahead.
you got the floor. I'm hopeful that if they do repeal Roe v. Wade, we won't know till June, that it will prompt public debate on a more local level.
All right, cool.
I would say one more thing,
Okay.
if that's okay with the host.
mhm.
Okay. I would say if you believe that by a federal mandate it's a bad thing that we're restricting the states' rights to choose, then how come you wouldn't extend that feeling towards restricting any woman's right to choose? Why is it a restriction when it's up to the state, and it's not a restriction when it's up to the individual?
No, I think that it was not the position of 9 justices to decide. I've thought all along, actually, believe it or not, I wrote a paper in college in 1982 on this, that the Supreme Court, the 9 justices, just overstepped their bounds. That this was if we wanted a national mandate, it was the position of the House and the Senate to debate and pass a law when, other than the 9 justices in 1973 deciding it, when has anybody heard any politician have a debate on it?
I have a question. Do you think that politicians now refuse to have those debates and everything because they're more concerned with being reelected than actually?
I absolutely do. particularly the federal politicians.
Exactly.
Yep.
So like it's literally impossible for a national debate to happen because everyone's just looking out for number one.
I absolutely agree with that, and it's not just with reproductive rights. It's across the board on a lot of really hard issues.
Yep.
I hate that one.
Friends.
Romans.
Romans, countrymen.
Lend
me your ears. Lend me your children. This has been a very exciting hot topic. Both of you enthralled me so much.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh my goodness. Tune in next time for our next hot topic. It's very hot in here, and keep it hot, friends. Cheers.
Oh, wait a minute. We're right-handed drinking.
Keep it hot.
Keep it hot. Hey. All right.
And I have liquid left.
I have to refill that.